Welcome back, everyone. Brett Canada here, JuiceFeaster on all the social media platforms, and I'm on a mission to cleanse, regenerate, and transform 1 million people with the magical powers of juicing. In today's video, I am super excited to take a look at two very popular juicers. Two juicers who have a ton of great reviews and have a lot of social media presence behind them. There are some influencers who get behind these juicers. So I'm very much interested to put them to the test and see what the pros and cons of each juicer is, and let you guys know what the best juicer that might fit your needs is. So the two juicers that we're going to review today, we've got the Nama Vitality 5800. This is a slow, cold press, masticating, vertical style juicer. It's a slow vertical auger type juicer. And we're gonna compare it against the pure 2-stage hydraulic press cold press juicer. So both of these juicers are labeled as cold press juicers. And what does that mean? It simply means that we're not heating the juice through a super fast spinning basket like a centrifugal style juicer does. For example, like the Breville style of juicer or the Jack LaLanne style of juicer. Any of those juicers are classified as centrifugal styles and not slow or cold press styles. So both of these juicers get a lot of attention. And one of the things that I like to do for you guys, my audience, is to make sure that you're able, beyond a shadow of a doubt, to pick the very best juicer that fits your needs. You know, I like to say that the best juicer for you isn't the most expensive juicer in some cases. The best juicer isn't the most fancy juicer or the juicer that's promoted by the most influencers. It's the juicer that fits your needs and the juicer that you use consistently. It doesn't matter how expensive the juicer is or who's behind the juicer. If you don't put it on the counter, plug it in and run fruits and vegetables, greens and herbs through it, you're not going to reap the rewards of the whole reason why we get a juicer to begin with. So let's take a look at these juicers. Comparing the two of them size-wise, you can see that the Pure is definitely a little bit larger in size. It's definitely a heavier juicer than the Nama, partly for the fact that it's made entirely from stainless steel. So all the parts that you see on the outside of the machine and any parts that come into contact with any produce whatsoever, they're all completely stainless steel. So definitely a cool feature on the Pure juicer, which makes it a little bit heavier in its style. The Pure juicer is a 2-stage cold pressed, which means that it's a little bit different than most of the juicers that you've seen out there. We have one stage on the left side of the machine as you're facing the machine, which is the grinder side of the machine or the first phase of the machine. Produce is put into that grinder, captured in a bowl, and then placed inside a reusable, cleanable press cloth and placed on the right side of the machine, which is a 2.5-ton hydraulic press, which presses the pulp that you've ground in the grinder on the left side of the machine, presses all the juice out on the right side of the machine. So incredible amount of force that presses that cold press, true cold press juicer on the right side of the machine. So that's the 2-stage type of juicer that embodies the Pure juicer. For the Nama Vitality, it's definitely a smaller footprint juicer. It's definitely lighter weight than the Pure juicer, but it's still got some heft to it. You can tell that there's a pretty good sized motor inside there that drives the mechanism on the juicer. So, it's definitely not a juicer that I would classify as a travel juicer. Certainly the Pure juicer is not a travel juicer, one that you would pack for a weekend trip. And I wouldn't say that either for the Nama Vitality juicer. what we see is a little bit different format for how things work, and this is more of what you're used to seeing, I think, with a lot of other juicers out on the market. This is a vertical cold press style juicer, which means that you feed the produce in the top. There's an auger in the middle of the machine that spins and kind of pulls the produce down and then presses it out against the outer walls of the juice bowl. Claim-wise, what we get from Nama, we see on the outside of their box and on their marketing materials that they list the juice made with a Nama juicer has better flavor. They list that there's more juice, that they get more juice than other juicers in the marketplace, and in some cases I've seen where they state 30 to 60% more juice. So that's a pretty sizable claim of yield. And they're also showing that it takes less time to use their juicer as well. So we'll kind of take a look at those three main claims that they make. Correspondingly with the Pure juicer, one of Pure's claims is that they get the most amount of juice, that they extract the most amount of nutrition, and they don't make any claims about time per se that I've seen on any of their marketing materials. So I can't attest to the nutritional composition of the juices that we're going to make here today because I'm not an analytical chemist and I don't have an analytical laboratory where I can analyze the juices and determine whether the juice from the Nama juicer has the most amount of vitamins and minerals and enzymes compared to the Pure juicer. I don't have that capability. But what I can do is take a look at the juice yield. I can take a look at the pulp that's in the juice, comparing the two juicers, and I can take a look at, relative time that it takes to operate each one of the juicers, as well as what I think about durability and other factors that might play into a decision that you're going to make to buy the best juicer for your needs. So let's take these juicers apart real quick. On vertical juicers, all of them have a pusher to push the produce down into the feed chute. That's very standard on vertical juicers, and most juicers recommend that you don't push the produce down. They kind of recommend that you drop the produce in and let the auger pull the produce down into the pressing mechanism. And they only recommend using that pusher if the produce gets stuck or kind of wedged in there. Give it a light tap and push it through. So that's the pusher. We take the lid off here and you'll be able to see the feed chute. Pretty common compared to other vertical juicers that I've seen. There's a little bit of a tray here that you can drop berries or pieces of celery that you cut up and drop on there, and it's angled down into the feed chute itself. Then there's also a vertical hole there that you can drop them straight in. Compared to other juicers that I've seen, this hole looks kind of medium in size. I've definitely seen some bigger styles that you can drop whole pieces of fruit like a whole apple in without having to cut it, and the Nama certainly doesn't have that size of a feed chute, but compared to the Pure, it's fairly similar, although I will say that the Pure feed chute is definitely larger and is completely round, whereas the Nama Vitality feed chute hole is kind of oblong in shape. We definitely, I would say, have more surface area to drop produce in, kind of as a catch tray on the Pure juicer here on the right. So, or on your left. So, not too much different than most other vertical style juicers for the feed chute. Then we'll take a look at the inner mechanism here where the actual juicing occurs in a vertical cold press juicer. Most vertical juicers that I have reviewed and used have a very similar setup to what I see here in the Nama. We have the auger, which is very common in vertical juicers. This doesn't look too much different than any other auger that I've seen in most other vertical juicers. As this auger spins, There's a knife edge that on the leading edge of the auger that actually will cut the produce, like cut greens or celery or carrots, and kind of then pull as it turns. It will pull the produce in, and the produce gets pressed on the outside of this auger here against the outer walls of the juice screen, which is on the inside of, which is the next item on the inside of the bowl. So we'll pull that out, and this is actually 2 pieces, and this is very common also in other vertical juicers that I've reviewed and used. We have the screen in the center of the mechanism here, and this is what the produce is pressed up against, and it's a fine mesh screen, so the pulp is actually pressed on the outside of the wall here. The juice runs through the screen, and the pulp then goes out through the feed chute through the outer edge of the juice bowl. In addition here, we have a second part which fits on the outside of the pressing screen, and this is kind of what I call like the windshield wiper mechanism. There are little rubber sweeps here on the outside of this that rub against the outside of the screen. I feel like they give a little bit more yield by doing that, by having those wipes. But another thing that I usually see with this mechanism on vertical cold press juicers actually will scrape pulp off of the outside edge of the screen and lead to a little bit pulpier juice. Now, I don't know whether that's going to happen on the Nama juicer. We'll see when we run some produce through it here in a minute. So those fit together like that. Then you have the rest of the juicing bowl, which you have a juice outlet here, which is where the juice runs out into our juice pitcher. And there is a really nice flap here, a nice rubber flap that you can collect juice. Let's say you're running produce and you still have some produce that's being juiced and you realize your pitcher is full. You can actually close this spout and the juicer can keep running, and you don't have any drips or any lost juice that way. You can pour this into another pitcher or your juicing jars or whatever your storage jars are for the balance of your juice. This is something the next feature is something different that I haven't seen on any other vertical juicers up to this point. And most other vertical juicers will have a little flap on the bottom here of the juice bowl that controls the flow of pulp out of the pulp chute after the juice has been juiced out of the pulp. This mechanism actually has 3 settings. It has a closed setting, it has kind of a halfway setting there, midway setting, and then it has a fully open setting. Nama asks that you keep this closed to start juicing, and when you get up to 13.5 ounces approximately, or 400 milliliters, you open this up to halfway, and what that does, it opens up this little flap at the bottom, which will begin to allow more pulp to come out of the pulp chute. So it's kind of a little extra thing to keep track of and pay attention to, especially if you're juicing quite a lot of volume. You kind of have to remember, okay, I'm up to 400 milliliters or 13.5 ounces. Let me open this up. They also comment in the instruction manual that when you get to higher volumes of juice, to keep this open so that this pulp chute doesn't clog up. So I found that an interesting direction as well. Let's put this back together here. One other point I will notice about additional attachments that come with the Nama juicer. We have 2 additional juicing screens or blanks that come with it in addition to the fine mesh screen that I was showing you just a second ago. We have one with some larger holes on the screen. This is what Nama labels as a smoothie screen. So for making smoothies or very pulpy type juices is what I think they have in mind with that. And they also have a completely closed blank here. This they label as the sorbet attachment so that you can actually make frozen fruit sorbets with this attachment. We're going to see how each one of these juicers work specifically with juice, and perhaps in another video we'll cover how each of them will work in making sorbets or nut milks or smoothies, if you will. The Pure also has attachments that allow it to do the same thing, to make both nut milks and sorbets. There are different sized grid screens that actually fit here in the grinder that I'll get into in a second. And depending upon the size of those grids, you can make various different things like smoothies and nut milks as well on this machine. So we'll touch on that here in a second. The Nama also comes with a nice brush here to be able to clean the screen with, the juicing screens with, and kind of get down in the cracks and crevices to clean it out. So a nice feature there. And then we've got a Pulp Pitcher here to catch all the pulp, as well as about 1,000 milliliter or 1 liter juice pitcher that comes with the Nama as well. So one thing that I would like to point out that I notice here looking at the Nama is that pretty much all of it is made out of plastic, with the exception of the juicing screen itself, which appears to be stainless steel. Everything else that comes into contact with the juicer is plastic. You'll see a very stark difference in that category in terms of composition of materials on the Nama compared to the Pure juicer. The Pure juicer being all stainless steel. So let's take a little closer look at the Pure juicer. All right, the Pure juicer, as I mentioned, is a two-stage juicer. We have a grinder on the left, hydraulic press on the right. Now you might think that that takes a little bit extra time, but we'll see. We'll see how much more difficult it is to do that extra process compared to just dropping your produce in on the Nama Vitality, and maybe what the benefits of that might be. Very easy to take apart and very minimal parts here. On the inside here we have the grinder. There are two options that are available for the Pure juicer. There is a serrated blade and there is also a smooth blade. The smooth blade is a lower grade of stainless steel, which potentially will need some sharpening after 7 or 8 years according to the Pure juicer company, and they have services available to take care of that. And I would assume it would take a lot of juicing to actually need to sharpen these blades. The juicer also comes with a serrated blade, and the serrated blade is the one that I typically use. I like the serrated blade because it works a little bit better for leafy greens and fibrous vegetables and root vegetables like ginger and turmeric and celery and kale and greens that I like to juice. So it works a little bit better with those leafy greens. So let's put this back together here and I'll explain the grids as well. So I mentioned the different sized grids. I believe there are 8 different sized grids that you can use depending upon what it is you're juicing, from very fine sizes up to very large whole sizes. I typically tend to use the number 10 or the number 12 size, which has bigger holes, which will allow more of the fibers from the leafy greens to go through nice and easily. So very easy to change out that grid. You pop out a little tray and take it out and you can replace it. Now moving over here to the hydraulic press side, or the second stage of the machine, this all comes apart. It's pretty simple, all stainless steel. This is actually where you put the press cloths full of pulp, and I'll show you how that works here in a moment. And this is the hydraulic lift plate as well. So all stainless steel, comes apart so you can get in here and wipe it down cleanly and nice and easily. So I really like the stainless steel cleanup aspect of the Pure juicer. We also have a pusher that allows us to push the produce down into the grinder on the Pure juicer. This is the maple wood pusher. The juicer comes standard with a plastic pusher as well. comparing the size of the two, pretty similar in size, but the Pure is a little bit bigger to accommodate the size of the feed chute compared to the Nama. On switch for both of these juicers. We've got the on switch here on the front leading side of the Nama juicer. It also has a neutral, which is just off, and then a reverse feature as well. Anytime I see vertical juicers, they typically have both a forward and a reverse option. And one of the things that can happen with vertical juicers is that they can get clogged. If you drop a carrot in there just right, or a hard beet, or a hard root vegetable, sometimes it gets jammed in there and will stall, and so you can hit that reverse button and kind of back up the produce that's jammed up in there. With the Pure juicer, on button is over here on the side. Comparing the two in terms of their noise volume, I would say that the Pure is a little bit louder. It's not excessively louder than the Nama, but there's the noise level of Pure and the noise level of the Nama. So definitely a quieter machine here with regards to noise level, but in my opinion, neither one of them are really super loud. For example, if you've had a Breville juicer or watched my other review video with a Breville juicer in it, the Breville juicer is really loud. And so compared to the Breville juicer, these two juicers are definitely more on the quiet side of things. Just overall comparing the two, you can see that we've got, a smaller package here with the Nama. It's made of plastic except for the juicing screen. There are definitely, a few more intricate parts here on the inner part of it. But a different style here with the Pure juicer. So you've got the grinder on the left, the hydraulic press on the right, all stainless steel. From a cleanability standpoint, I would say that they're pretty similar in terms of the time it would take to clean each of them. Although I like cleaning stainless steel a little better than I like cleaning plastic. Stainless steel tends to clean up easier. I feel like obviously it doesn't stain if you're running a lot of ginger or turmeric or carrots or dark orange or dark purple vegetables. It just doesn't stain like plastic parts can stain. So I really like that aspect of the Pure juicer. The second part of the stage of the Pure juicer involves a reusable, cleanable press cloth, which allows the pulp that we grind up on the left side of the machine to be pressed on the right side of the machine. So I'll grab some cloths here. Basically, these are a reusable, cleanable press cloth that we take about 1.5 cups of produce, place it on the center of the press cloth, fold it in a tic-tac-toe fashion, fold it over and place it on the hydraulic press, turn on the press, raises it up, presses the juice out, and when it's done pressing, we lower that down and put our next cloth on. So that is one difference in terms of what needs to be cleaned on the Pure versus the Nama. The Nama obviously does not have a second step that involves these cloths, but my experience in cleaning these cloths, the puck or the pressed pulp that's left in these cloths comes off very easily. You basically rinse it off under water, and after you're done, you fold them back up after they're rinsed out, squeeze out all the water with your hand, or you can put them on the press itself and press the water out, put them in a Ziploc bag and place them in the freezer so that they stay fresh until the next day or your next juicing session. Then once a week, Pure recommends that you take these cloths and soak them for a few hours in a hydrogen peroxide or an OxyClean solution, which breaks down the chemical bonds of any produce or juice that's still left on those and completely sanitizes them. So then you rinse that out, squeeze them out, and they're completely sanitized. And these will last, according to Pure, these will last several years before you have to replace them. So pretty cool feature, a little different process than the Nama, but certainly no more difficult in my eye. That takes care of taking a look at each one of these juicers. You know, you've got the Nama, which is a smaller package. It's plastic except for the pressing screen, versus the two-stage pure juicer, grinder on the left, hydraulic press on the right. Now really, to me, the only thing left to do is to run some produce through them and see how they do in terms of the yield. How much juice does each one of them make? We can take a look and see how they taste for sure. I'd like to take a look and see if there's any pulp left in the juice for each of these, and take a look at how long it takes for each one of these juicers to juice a certain amount of produce. So what I've done, I've weighed out on a kitchen scale. I've weighed out 1,000 grams each of both celery and carrots. And so what we're going to do, we're going to run the carrots through the pure, then the celery through the pure, then we'll run the carrots through the Nama well and the celery through the Nama well. And we'll take a look at the juice yield, we'll take a look at the pulp in the juice, and look at the pulp itself, and talk about how long it took to do the juicing of all the produce. One thing I will point out, as I was looking at the instruction manual of the Nama, they do mention that anytime you're juicing any more than 2.5 pounds of produce, they recommend that you take the machine apart and completely clean it before you juice any further. So that was one thing that I've never seen any other vertical juicer mention in terms of an instruction. So that kind of threw me a little bit in terms of the fact that I just couldn't keep juicing on it for a long period of time. As I looked further at the instructions, Nama recommends that you don't use this juicer any longer than 30 minutes at a time. So that gives me some concern that this juicer might not be able to work you know, for long periods of time. So if you're on a juice feast or a solid food vacation and you're making, you know, a couple gallons at a time, it's going to take you longer than 30 minutes to make that juice. And also you're going to be juicing more than 2 pounds. So that makes me think that I'm always going to have to take this apart based on Nama's instructions to prevent messing up the machine. So that's one thing that I saw in the instructions that kind of got my attention. We're definitely going to be juicing more than 2 pounds. So I'm not going to clean it out, even though I'm running 2 pounds of celery and 2 pounds of carrots through the juicer. I'm not going to stop and clean it out. I'm just going to see how it does. You know, it shouldn't take me 30 minutes to juice all that produce on here, so we shouldn't have to worry about shutting it off and letting it rest. Nama did not give any instructions for how long you should let the juicer rest before you can use it again. So I'm not exactly sure what that's about with the Nama. With the Pure, the only caution that I saw with their machine is that you don't use anything other than the pusher that came with the machine to push produce down into the machine. And they also said keep your hands clear of the hydraulic press. So those are really the only safety things or notifications that I saw in the owner's manual for the Pure juicer. So with all that said, let's juice the carrots on the Nama, then the celery on the Nama, see how much juice we get. Then we'll do the exact same. We'll juice the carrots on the Pure and the celery on the Pure, compare the juice to each of those. So I'm going to do that next, and I'll be right back and we'll take a look at the juice. Let's pour out the juice here, the celery juice. Let's see what we got. About a liter there on the celery juice, and about a half liter or 16 ounces or so of carrot juice. One of the things that I noticed in the instruction manual of the Nama Vitality juicer was that they recommended that any fibrous produce or hard produce like carrots or celery or anything like that be cut up into 1 to 3 inch pieces to avoid clogging at the pulp outlet chute, and also so that it could juice easier in the pressing mechanism. I didn't do that today. I wanted to see how it did without cutting up the produce. In my opinion, if you're going to be a juicer that juices in less time, chopping up the produce is going to take more time. And so if they really feel like it's going to be a faster juicer, I don't think cutting up the produce is a good idea. Furthermore, one thing I did notice, all of the produce that I ran through today, both the celery and the carrots, were small enough that they could fit in this feed chute. But I certainly have seen carrots, especially juicing carrots, that are pretty large in size, and they definitely wouldn't have fit in the feed chute on the Nama Vitality, which would require some extra time to cut that produce up and put it in there. So certainly something like an apple or tomatoes or bell peppers or things of that nature, obviously you're going to have to cut those up, and that takes some time. And if they're recommending that you cut up the produce, it's certainly going to take more time, specifically compared to the pure juicer, and certainly compared to some other juicers who have really large feed chutes in the vertical juicer category that allow you to drop whole apples or whole tomatoes or whole pieces of large fruit in that feed chute. So just something to keep in mind for the claim of less time. The carrots went through pretty quickly. The celery seemed like it took a while to get through 1,000 grams or 2 pounds of celery. So everything juiced well. The machine didn't seem to struggle or anything like that. I followed the instructions and opened the pulp control lever here from the closed position into the half open position. They said to flip that from closed to half open when you reach 400 milliliters or 13.5 ounces, and then keep it open, half open from there. So followed the instructions. I didn't really notice any clogging or anything, even with celery and carrots that I had not chopped up. But I'm not so sure that if we kept juicing that it wouldn't have clogged up based on the instruction manual's recommendations not to juice any more than 2.5 pounds of produce without taking this bowl apart and cleaning it out. All right, so let's move on to the pure juicer. We're going to run 1,000 grams of carrots through the juicer and 1,000 grams of celery through the juicer, just like we did on the Nama, and see what happens. I'll be right back. 1,000 grams of carrots and 1,000 grams of celery on the pure 2-stage hydraulic cold press juicer. Let's stack these up in terms of yield and some other factors here. The celery juice here was the last item I pressed on the pure. All right, so we've got the pure juices here, right here, and we've got the Nama Vitality juices right here. So right away we can take a look at the pure juicer here, the yield on the juice versus the Nama Vitality juice here, and we can see that the pure juicer absolutely blew the Nama juicer out of the water in terms of the yield. You're looking at about 800 milliliters of juice on the pure and right at 500. 300 milliliters more juice extracted on 1,000 grams or about 2 pounds of carrots. So pretty substantial amount more juice coming off the pure. So that one was definitely the winner in terms of the yield. Now if we look at the celery, they're a little bit closer. Pour both of these out to get a more exact measurement. So that's the pure, and this is the Nama. A little closer on the celery. All right, so for the pure juicer, right at 800, just right at 800 milliliters. And with the Nama, you know, we're right at 800 milliliters as well. So it's exactly the same amount. So we can definitely see that the pure won out incredibly on the carrot juice by 300 milliliters more juice on 2 pounds of carrots. But it looks like the celery were about the same amount. So let's take a look at the pulp from each of the juicers. So here we have the pulp pressed on the pure 2-stage cold press juicer, and here we have the celery. So obviously very compact pucks. And then we have the pulp here on the Nama juicer. One thing that I would like to do, I would actually like to take the pulp from the Nama juicer and press it on the hydraulic press to see if any more juice will come out here from the Nama juicer pulp. So let's do that. So let's see how much juice actually came out of the pulp from the Nama juicer. So quite a bit here. So we're over 8 ounces of juice. This is an 8-ounce measuring cup, and we're over 8 ounces. I would say 10 ounces extra juice that actually came out of the pulp from the Nama juicer. So whereas we absolutely saw that the pure yield on carrot juice was incredibly higher, 300 milliliters higher on carrots. We saw about the same on the celery, so pretty even match up there on celery. But then taking the pulp from the Nama and juicing it on the pure press, we got an extra 10 ounces of juice. So that means that there was 10 ounces of juice left in the pulp of the Nama juicer. You know, one of the things that I like to consider when juicing is that, you know, produce is not free. Produce costs money. Whereas certain juicers may not cost as much up front when you purchase them, as you use them, the yield of juice that you get from those juicers will actually then contribute to how much produce it takes to produce the amount of juice that you're interested in drinking. So for people who are adding a lot of juice into their lifestyle, this can really add up over time when you're getting that much more juice yield out of a juicer like the Pure versus the Nama. when we look at this, 300 milliliters, so 8 ounces more of carrot juice on the pure juicer, and then pressing the juice out of the pulp, getting another 10, that's almost 20 ounces extra of juice on 4 pounds of produce. So about 2/3 of a liter or 2/3 of a quart of juice more that we pressed out with the pure juicer. So really something to keep in mind when juicers are marketed to have higher yield or more juice. It's really something to keep in mind that just because it says it in the marketing materials maybe doesn't mean that it's exactly the case. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking for the juicer that is going to give you the best yield. Another thing I'd like to take a look at is the amount of pulp that's found in the juice on the Nama juicer versus the pure juicer. So I've got a fine mesh strainer here, and we're going to pour the juice from the Nama juicer through this strainer and see how much pulp we get. Wow, there's quite a bit of pulp actually in the jar. I'm actually going to pour that back into the jar to mix it up so that we can get all that pulp out. And this is the carrot juice from the pure juicer. All right, a huge difference here in terms of what we've got in terms of pulp left in the juice running through the Nama juicer versus the pure juicer. So this is the strainer that I poured the juice through after it went through the carrot juice, after it went through the pure juicer. And this is the strainer with the pulp in it from the Nama juicer. So an incredible amount of pulp still left in the juice. And so you might be asking, is that an issue? Is it a problem to have pulp in the juice? It's been shown for people who are targeting specific health issues, juices without pulp and fiber, like we see here in the Nama, those juices aren't absorbed as well or as efficiently. For me personally, I really like to have a completely pulp-free juice. And so you can see the difference here in what's left. There's literally nothing in the juice from the pure juicer, and quite a bit of pulp here in the strainer running the carrot juice through from the Nama. Let's also run the juice. This is the celery juice from the pure juicer. Let's run that through. So here again, virtually nothing in the bottom there. Now let's run the celery juice back through from the Nama juicer. Wow, so here you have again more pulp. I'm making a heck of a mess on my counter, but more pulp, celery pulp coming from the Nama juicer. So when you take that pulp out of the equation, it lowers the actual juice yield. That juice yield, which apparently was about the same for celery juice, and certainly less for carrot juice on the Nama juicer, by having that pulp in there, it's actually really not juice. It's actually still solids. So that reduces the yield from my perspective. So something to keep in mind when Nama says more juice, that yield could be, that they're thinking of, could be because it's got all this extra pulp in it. So definitely something to keep in mind there. All right, I am back after a quick countertop wipe down here with some closing thoughts on the Nama Vitality 5800 juicer and the Pure 2-stage cold press hydraulic juicer. I think it's pretty apparent to me, looking at the juice yield from both of these juicers, that the Pure really blew the Nama out of the water. If you look at the juice yield just on the carrots alone, we were about 8 ounces more juice just on the carrot juice. We were pretty similar, about 800 milliliters on the celery juice, but when we took out the pulp, we gained a couple of ounces because of the pulp residue that was still left in the juice from the Nama, because it did not take all the pulp out. Then, if we take into consideration pressing the pulp from the Nama on the hydraulic press of the Pure juicer and coming up with an extra 10 ounces of juice, that makes almost 20 ounces of juice more in total on the Pure than from the Nama. It's a lot more juice yield that makes it difficult for me to believe a claim from Nama that they extract more juice yield than other juicers. And I've seen some marketing that says 30 to 60%, and so this is absolutely not true based on what we pressed today. So what things could I say good and bad about each one of these juices? Not necessarily bad in the sense of terrible, but I like to just talk about the pros and cons of each one of the juicers. Let's talk about cost. The Pure juicer comes in at the base model of, at the time of filming of this video, $2,095. Now, what that gets you is basically everything that you see here. It gets you the smooth cutter. It gets you accessories that go with it in terms of like the press cloths and things that are used with it. It's an international model, so it can actually work anywhere in the world with the appropriate cord and electrical connection. So that's a pretty cool benefit with this machine. I really like the stainless steel aspects of this machine. It makes it super easy to clean. It's extremely durable in my opinion because of the quality of design of the machine. You know, when I see a machine that's built all stainless steel like this, I automatically think quality. The machine is not certified NSF so that it could be used in commercial applications, but every health department is a little bit different. And because this machine is made completely from stainless steel, I have a feeling that most health departments out there, if asked, would say that this would be a very appropriate machine to use in a juice bar or a restaurant or a commercial application, a commercial kitchen application. So something to keep in mind with this machine. The cost is definitely a little bit more than most juicers out there, but when you begin to factor in the yield advantages, one of the things that I think about when you have that level of yield advantage and that much more juice, this machine is going to pay for itself in produce cost savings if you're juicing as much as I do. If you're juicing on a regular basis, you know, a couple, 3 times a week, you're going to be using a lot of produce. That produce is not cheap. The juice that you get from this machine is going to add up. It's going to reduce your costs over time, and ultimately, to me, it will pay for the machine. So that's a pretty cool feature about this juicer. When we talk about speed of the machines, I really feel like both of these machines were about the same. It's very difficult for me to say that the Nama, based on their claim, is a faster juicer to use. It was much faster to feed the produce through the grinder on the Pure juicer than it was to drop each one of the celery and carrot sticks into the machine and slowly let them feed their way through. That said, it's a single stage machine, so once you fed them through, you're done. So while the Pure was faster feeding it through, it takes a little bit more time to actually put the pulp in the press cloth and press them out on the hydraulic press. So to me, they really take about the same amount of time to make the juice. Nothing significantly different there. Enough such that I would say the Nama is a faster juice maker. The other claim that one of the juicers, the Nama juicer, makes is that their juice tastes better, that they have a better flavor. So I'm gonna taste each one of these juices and see if I can taste any differences here. So this is the carrot juice from the Nama juicer. Yeah, that's a quality juice to me. You know, very similar in flavor to me. I do pick up a little bit of grittiness in the juice from the Nama juicer. It's not a lot, but there is some grittiness there. Flavor-wise, they're about the same. I might say that without the grittiness in the pure juicer, it's a little bit silkier, a little bit smoother, and the Nama juice is a little bit coarser, just a little grittier. And I think that's by virtue of that pulp being in the juice that you saw being strained out. Let's try the celery juice from the Nama. Yeah, typical celery juice flavor there. It's really similar drinking the celery juice from the pure to the carrot juice, whereas there's just not that grittiness found in the celery juice or the carrot juice compared to the juice that came from the Nama. So that's one thing that I really pick up, is the grittiness or that extra fiber in the juice from the Nama. Otherwise, I just get a little bit silkier, a little bit smoother texture on the juice from the pure juicer, and I think it's just because of that extra pulp in there. So to say that the Nama has better flavor, I really would not go as far as to say that, and I think the only way that you could specifically do that is to set up a taste panel, a taste analysis where you had several people to do a blind taste test, a triangle test, if you will, to pick out, scientifically which has the best flavors. It's very difficult to do it subjectively like this. My own personal opinion is that I like the smoother, silkier juice from the pure without that pulp in there. So that's something to consider as well. Let's speak about these juicers from a durability perspective. When we look at each of these juicers, you've got the pure juicer, which is all stainless steel, a little bit bigger, heavier machine, of course. And then you've got the Nama, which is a little bit smaller machine, but made pretty much all of plastic. When it comes to a durability viewpoint, my personal view is that the Nama is much more susceptible to breakage and breaking parts. And so I took a look at the warranty for each one of these juicers, and the pure juicer has a one-time transferable 12-year warranty on the entire machine. So all the parts, the motor, basically everything, a 12-year warranty. The Nama juicer, on the other hand, has a 10-year warranty on the motor. So full 10-year warranty. It did not mention anything about being transferable to a new owner. Could not find anything about that online. But a 2-year warranty on all of the parts other than the motor. So of everything on the Nama juicer, to me, the most breakable items that I see are the pieces that I have to take apart and clean, and the pieces that are under the most stress in terms of the juicing mechanism. And those are pretty much all plastic. The gearing in here is all plastic. Really the only thing that's not plastic in this juicing mechanism is the fine mesh screen. Everything else is plastic. So if there's any risk involved, I would say from a durability perspective, it would be the plastic parts having the potential to break, and having only a 2-year warranty. Once you get outside of that 2-year period, you potentially might have to pick up the cost of those parts on your own if there was any kind of defect or breakage or anything like that. And then you have a 10-year warranty on the motor versus everything on the Pure is 12 years. So that's kind of my rundown on comparing both of these juicers. You know, it really depends upon what your goals and your needs are for juicing. If you're like me and you're looking for the highest juice yield, the highest nutrition, I tend to gravitate over here towards the Pure, specifically because of what I saw in the juice yield itself. You know, having that much more juice on 4 pounds of produce is really pretty spectacular. So that's definitely something I like to keep in mind when comparing those juicers in that regard. So it really comes down to what you have in mind. If you're an occasional juicer, just a casual juicer, and you don't mind getting a little bit less yield and having a pulpier juice, you're not so worried about the warranty aspect of a juicer, then perhaps the Nama could be a really solid, serviceable juicer for you. If you're getting serious about juicing and you're really looking to make sure you get the highest yield and the most pulp-free juice with the most nutrient extraction, I feel like the Pure will definitely win out in those categories. One thing that you also need to consider with the Nama, there are international models, but they are very specific to the region of the world that you're in. So one model cannot be automatically used in certain parts of the world. They have international models specific to where you're at. So just make sure that you're getting the correct model if you buy that. The Pure juicer, on the other hand, works anywhere in the world and can be configured to any electrical requirement depending upon where you're at. So there you have it. That's my complete rundown of the Nama Vitality 5800 versus the Pure cold press 2-stage hydraulic juicer. Whatever juicer that you decide to purchase, I hope that you put it to good use. Remember that the best juicer is the one that you use most consistently. So keep that in mind when you're picking out your juicer. So if you have any questions, put them in the comment box below. Let me know, have you used the Nama juicer? What do you think about it? Put your comments in the comment box below. Have you used the Pure juicer? What do you think? Have you used both of them? Tell me what your thoughts are about these juicers. Until we speak again, I encourage you to make lots of juice, drink it all, and stay juicy. Cheers, my friends.